The shuttle's hull trembled as it pierced the blue veil of atmosphere, and Daniel Hayes leaned forward in his seat, palms damp with sweat. Through the glass, a world stretched out beneath him. Emerald forests, rivers that glittered like silver threads, and towers of crystal rising from the land like frozen lightning. It was not Earth. It was not anything he had known. This was Vera, the heart of the Helari Dominion, and his new home. He had dreamed of this moment. Humanity's contact with alien civilizations was still new, tentative, and wrapped in diplomacy. But somehow, against all odds, Daniel Hayes, an ordinary teacher from Earth, had been chosen to become the first human instructor at the Academy of Starlit Minds, an elite school for young Helari women. The opportunity had felt impossible, a once-in-history honor. And now, as the shuttle descended, reality closed in around him like a drumbeat. The pilot, a silent Helari officer with skin faintly glowing like moonlight, gave him no words of comfort. Daniel could feel the subtle thrum of alien technology vibrating through the seat, could hear the whispers of the engines like a breath from another world. He told himself to breathe, to remain calm. But his heart would not slow. The shuttle settled into a courtyard paved with luminous stones. Waiting for him were figures draped in flowing silver robes, their tall forms elegant and alien. Their faces were smooth, symmetrical, with large eyes that shimmered with shifting colors, violet, teal, and gold, all at once, like pools of liquid starlight. They were beautiful, but in a way that made Daniel's chest tighten. Beautiful and untouchable. One stepped forward. Her voice was soft, melodic, yet carried a weight of authority. Daniel Hayes of Earth. Welcome. You are to be the first of your kind here. Remember this honor. And remember the trust you carry. Daniel nodded, forcing steadiness into his voice. Thank you. I will do my best. The Helari inclined her head, but her eyes flickered in a way that unsettled him. An unspoken warning, as if to say, do not forget where you stand. He followed them through archways that seemed carved from glass and light, into the academy itself. The corridors shimmered with soft illumination that came from no visible source. The air smelled faintly of sweet herbs, calming, though Daniel suspected it was meant to be more than pleasant. It was meant to control, to soothe. The dormitories and lecture halls they passed were filled with students. Helari girls turned to stare at him as he walked. Their faces were curious, their eyes alive with 1,000 questions. Some whispered to one another, their voices like a chorus of bells. Others tilted their heads, studying him as though he were a specimen, a rare creature out of place. Daniel kept walking, heart pounding. He was introduced to his quarters, simple yet elegant, a chamber with curved walls that seemed alive with faint patterns of light. When he was finally alone, he sat on the edge of the strange bed and pressed his hands together. It felt unreal. This place, this role, the Academy of Starlit Minds. He had expected nerves, of course. But as he thought back on the stairs, on the way the students' whispers had hushed when their guardians drew near, he felt something else too. A tension, a silence beneath the surface, like an ocean waiting to surge. That night, he could not sleep. He lay awake, listening to the faint hum of alien machinery hidden in the walls, watching the moving lights drift across the ceiling like stars. His thoughts swirled with questions he could not answer. When morning came, he dressed in the garments they had provided, simple robes of deep blue, marked with the crest of the academy, and made his way to his first class. The lecture hall was vast, its walls curved like the inside of a pearl. Rows of alien students sat waiting, their posture perfect, their faces calm. Their robes shimmered in pale hues, each color denoting rank or field of study. As Daniel stepped onto the platform, a hush fell across the room. Dozens of alien eyes, glowing softly, fixed on him. He swallowed hard, then forced a smile. Good morning. My name is Daniel Hayes. I am from Earth. Today, I will be your teacher. The words echoed strangely in the chamber, caught by some resonance in the walls. The students watched him, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Then, a single hand lifted. The girl who raised it had pale violet skin and hair like spun silver. Her eyes shifted between shades of blue, curious yet wary. Why have they brought a human here? What can you teach us that we do not already know? Her question hung in the air like a blade. Daniel hesitated, then answered with honesty. I do not know why they chose me, but I do know this. I have lived a life different from yours. On Earth, We see the universe through another lens. Perhaps I cannot give you new facts about science or history, but I can share with you the way humans think, the way we question, the way we dream. A ripple of whispers moved through the hall. Some of the students leaned forward. Others frowned. But Daniel saw something flash across their faces, something more than curiosity. Hunger. The lesson began. He spoke of human history, of art, of the struggles of past generations. He described the rise and fall of civilizations, the way humans had fought to build societies, how they had stumbled, failed, and risen again. The students listened, eyes wide, some nodding, some whispering to one another when they thought he did not see. But when the bell chimed and the class ended, the guardians stepped in. Tall, stern figures cloaked in black, their eyes sharp as blades. The students lowered their gazes, silent, obedient. Daniel felt the shift immediately. The energy in the room drained. The whispers died. The guardian's presence pressed like a weight on his chest. One of them spoke, voice cold. Human Haze. You are to remain within the curriculum we have approved. Do not deviate. Do not plant seeds that do not belong. Daniel nodded, his throat dry. Of course. But as the students filed out, one of them lingered. She was tall for her age, her eyes a storm of gold and green, her expression unreadable. When the guardian's attention turned away, she glanced back at Daniel and mouthed a single word, almost too soft to catch. Why? And then she was gone. That night, Daniel sat alone in his quarters, replaying that moment. He thought of the way the girl had looked at him, of the way all the students had leaned forward when he spoke of struggle, of hope, of dreaming. He thought of the guardians, their cold warning, and he felt something stir within him. He had come here believing he was just a teacher, a guest. But he could feel it now, faint as a spark waiting for breath. These young women were not empty vessels to be filled. They were restless, questioning, aching for something they could not yet name. And maybe, just maybe, he had already given them the first word for it. The next morning, Daniel stood before the students again. Their eyes shone with curiosity, but their faces were calm, obedient. It was as if they had been trained to wear masks the moment the guardians entered. He had noticed it yesterday. The moment authority appeared, their voices hushed, their expressions hardened. He cleared his throat. Today, we will continue. I want to tell you about something humans value deeply. Something that has shaped our history more than almost anything else. The students leaned forward, almost instinctively. He saw their eyes glimmer, though not a word was spoken. Daniel hesitated. He knew he was being watched. The guardians might step in at any moment. But he also knew that yesterday, when he spoke of dreams and struggle, something had shifted in the air. He could not ignore it. He took a slow breath. The word is freedom. The sound of it echoed, unfamiliar, strange in their language. The students tilted their heads, their eyes flickering like flames caught in glass. One girl raised her hand. She was the one who had mouthed why. Yesterday, tall, sharp-eyed, with golden green irises that seemed to burn brighter than the others. Her name, he had learned, was Sira. What is freedom? She asked, her voice steady but urgent. Daniel smiled faintly. Freedom is the ability to choose your own path. To decide who you want to be, without chains, without fear. It is the right to think for yourself, even if others tell you not to. The words sank into the silence like stones dropped into water. He could see it. The ripple, the widening circles across their faces. They did not move. They barely breathed. But their eyes told him everything. Another hand rose. This one belonged to a smaller girl with silver hair and soft lilac skin. Her name was Kaylee. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Do you mean, we are not free? The guardians were not present. For the first time, Daniel felt he could answer honestly. He did not say yes. He did not say no. He only leaned closer, his voice quiet but unshakable. I mean that freedom is something you must claim. No one can give it to you. It must come from within. The room seemed to pulse with silence. Some of the students exchanged glances. Sira's hands clenched against her desk. Kaylee's lips parted, as though she wanted to ask more, but dared not. Then the bell rang, sharp and final. The guardians appeared almost instantly, their presence heavy, their gazes sharp. Daniel saw the way the students' shoulders stiffened, their heads bowed. The masks returned. The moment of fire was smothered in an instant. But as the students filed out, he caught a glimpse of their eyes. They were no longer calm pools of starlight. They were storms waiting to break. That night, there was a knock at Daniel's quarters. He opened the door to find Sira standing there, tall and defiant, her eyes gleaming like a hidden sun. Behind her were Kaylee and two others he did not yet know. "Teacher," Sira said softly, "we want to know more." Daniel's throat tightened. He glanced down the corridor, half expecting to see guardians lurking in the shadows. But it was empty. "Come in," he whispered. The girls stepped inside. They moved with a mixture of boldness and fear, like children sneaking into forbidden places. Once the door was closed, Kaylee spoke first, her voice trembling. "You said freedom is the right to choose your own path. But here, our paths are already chosen. Every class, every lesson, every future role. We are told where we will serve, who we will serve, how we will live. Is that not wrong?" Daniel looked at their faces, young, bright, but shadowed with questions they had been trained not to ask. His chest ached. He knew he should be careful. He knew one wrong word could end this opportunity forever. But he also knew there was no turning back now. "On Earth," he said softly, "there were times when people lived under chains. They were told what to do, who to be, just as you are. But they fought. They dreamed of something different. And when enough of them believed, when enough of them stood together, they found freedom." Sira's eyes flashed like fire. "Then we can too." The room fell silent. Kaylee's breath caught. The other two girls looked shaken, but not frightened, exhilarated. Daniel leaned forward, his voice urgent. "Listen to me. Freedom is not given. It is taken, and it comes with risk. On Earth, many suffered, many died, before change came. You must understand the danger." Sira did not flinch. "We already live in danger, teacher. Every day, we are told to be less than what we are. Every day, we bury our questions. If we are punished for wanting more, then so be it. At least it will be for truth." Her words struck him like thunder. Daniel realized in that moment that the spark had already caught flame. He had only given it a name. The girls left before dawn, slipping away like shadows. But word spread faster than whispers could carry. By the end of the week, Daniel noticed changes. Students lingered after class, their eyes brighter, their questions sharper. He heard them using the word freedom among themselves in hushed tones, as if it were a secret prayer. And then, something extraordinary happened. During a lesson on logic and mathematics, Kaylee grew frustrated with a problem. Her hands trembled, her emotions spilling through her control. Suddenly, a shimmer of energy burst from her skin, raw, uncontained, luminous. The class gasped. Guardians rushed forward, their eyes flashing with alarm. But Daniel understood immediately. Their powers. They were not random. They were tied to emotion, to passion, to the very thing the Academy tried to suppress. And now, awakened by the forbidden word, by the dream of freedom, those powers were stirring. That night, Daniel stood by his window, staring out at the alien stars. His heart pounded with fear and awe. He had come here as a teacher, nothing more. But now, whether he wanted it or not, he had become something else. A spark. And sparks, he knew, had a way of setting the world on fire. The days that followed carried an invisible current, a pulse running beneath the stillness of the Academy. Daniel felt it in every corridor, every glance exchanged when the Guardians' backs were turned. The word had taken root. Freedom. It lingered in the air like the scent of fire after lightning. He noticed it in his classes first. Questions began to change. At first, they were simple. Teacher, on Earth, who decides what path you take? Teacher, can one person defy an entire system? Then the questions grew sharper, bolder. What if we do not wish to serve the Dominion? What if we wish to walk another road, one no one has chosen for us? Daniel answered carefully, always with a trace of caution, but his honesty slipped through despite himself. He told them of human revolutions, of voices that rose against empires, of ordinary people who toppled kings. He described how fragile even the strongest systems could be when enough hearts and minds yearned for change. And each time, he saw their eyes catch fire. The Guardians, of course, noticed. One evening, as Daniel left the hall, two of them stood waiting in the corridor. Their cloaks were darker than the shadows, their faces stern, their eyes like cold stars. "Human Hayes," one said, "you are straying from the lessons you were instructed to teach." Daniel forced his voice steady. "I speak only of history. Human history. Your words carry influence. Influence you do not understand." The Guardian stepped closer, the air around him sharp with authority. Be careful. The young are impressionable. They must not be exposed to dangerous illusions. Daniel bowed his head, murmuring agreement. But inside, his heart pounded with fury. Illusions? No. Freedom was no illusion. It was the most real thing he had ever known. That night, the knock came again. Not just Sierra this time. Not just Kaylee. A dozen girls stood at his door, their faces alight with urgency, with longing. "Teacher," Sierra said, her voice low but unshakable. "We will not be silent anymore." Daniel stepped aside, and they entered. The small chamber filled with their presence, the air charged with something electric. He looked at them, different ages, different ranks, different colors of shimmering robes, but all united by the same fire in their eyes. "What are you asking of me?" Daniel said softly. "We do not ask," Sierra replied. "We only want you to guide us. Tell us what humans did. Tell us how they broke their chains." Daniel hesitated. His mind screamed warnings. If he said the wrong words, these girls could be punished, erased. He could be expelled, exiled, or worse. But then Kaylee stepped forward, her voice trembling yet fierce. "You told us freedom must be claimed. Then teach us how to claim it." He closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. But you must understand, freedom is not given in a day. It is born in unity, in courage. You must stand together, even when they try to break you apart." The girls listened, every breath caught in the net of his words. "And there is more," Daniel continued. "On Earth, when people believed in freedom, they discovered strength they never knew they had. You too have strength within you, powers tied to your hearts. You must learn to control them, not hide them." The chamber trembled with silence. Then Sierra lifted her hand, palm glowing faintly as energy rippled across her skin like liquid fire. "We have already begun." Daniel's breath caught. Around her, others began to reveal it too. Flashes of light, sparks of force, ripples in the air. Their powers were awakening, raw and untamed, fed by their emotions, by their yearning for freedom. Kaylee's silver hair shimmered as the air around her vibrated with sound, a low hum that made the walls quiver. Another girl, Lyra, caused the very floor to ripple like liquid under her bare feet. They were becoming more than students, more than daughters of the Dominion. They were becoming something dangerous, something unstoppable. The next day, the rebellion began in whispers. Students refused to answer when guardians barked commands. They lingered after classes, speaking in low tones, their eyes sharp with hidden defiance. Rules were ignored. Small acts of resistance blossomed like weeds, tiny, stubborn, impossible to uproot. But then came the first true spark. During a lecture, a guardian struck a girl for speaking out of turn. The blow cracked across the hall, cold and merciless. The girl stumbled, her eyes flashing with pain and fury. Before anyone could stop her, her power erupted. A wave of force flung the guardian backward, slamming him into the wall. Gasps filled the chamber. The other guardians rushed forward, their cloaks flaring like blades of shadow. But the students did not cower. They stood, one by one. Their powers shimmered in the air, light, sound, energy, force. The guardians froze, realizing for the first time that the balance had shifted. Daniel stood at the front of the hall, heart hammering. He knew what this meant. The choice had been made. There was no turning back now. That night, the academy was no longer quiet. Whispers turned to songs. Fear turned to resolve. The word freedom passed through every dormitory, every corridor, spoken not in fear, but in defiance. The guardians doubled their patrols. The headmistress herself, tall and austere, summoned Daniel to her chambers. Her eyes were endless pools of shifting violet, her voice cold as iron. "You have brought unrest to this place," she said. "The young ones look to you, not to us. This cannot continue." Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady despite the fire in his chest. "They do not look to me. They look to something greater. You cannot silence that forever." Her eyes narrowed, her voice sharp. "You will leave this academy by week's end. And when you are gone, their fire will die." But Daniel knew she was wrong, because the fire no longer came from him. It came from them, and it was burning brighter with every passing hour. The academy no longer breathed in silence. For centuries, its halls had been temples of control, each lesson measured, each future dictated. But now, the air itself seemed alive with unrest. The girls no longer walked with bowed heads. They lifted their chins, their steps steady, their eyes lit with unspoken fire. And the guardians felt it. Their patrols doubled, their punishments grew harsher, and yet for every rule enforced, 2 more acts of defiance bloomed. Students shared forbidden words in hidden corners, scratched the human symbol for freedom into the walls when no one was watching, and sat together in the lecture halls with a defiance that needed no words. Daniel saw it all. He knew the headmistress would not wait long. His days here were numbered. But the girls refused to let him go quietly. One night, Sira came to him again, her golden-green eyes burning brighter than ever. Kaylee was at her side, along with Lyra and half a dozen others. Their powers flickered faintly in the dim light of his quarters, an uncontrolled storm barely held at bay. "They are planning to take you," Sira said flatly. "The headmistress has ordered it. They will remove you before the week ends." Daniel's chest tightened. He had expected it, but hearing it aloud was different. "Then you must let me go," he whispered. "If I stay, you will all suffer worse." Kaylee shook her head fiercely, her silver hair catching the glow of alien light. "No. Without you, we would not have known. Without you, we would still be asleep. We will not lose the one who woke us." "You do not need me," Daniel insisted. "The fire is already yours. You carry it now. Even if I leave, it cannot be extinguished." But Sira stepped closer, her hand trembling with restrained energy. "You are wrong, teacher. A fire without a spark can be smothered. You are the spark. If they take you, the rest will lose hope. That is why they fear you. That is why they want you gone." The room fell silent. Daniel looked at their faces, so young, so fierce, so determined. He had not asked for this. He had only wanted to teach. Yet here he stood, at the heart of something larger than himself. "Then we will fight," Lyra said quietly. Her voice was calm, but the floor beneath her rippled like water with every word. "Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now." The decision was made in that moment. The next day, the guardians entered his class with cold purpose. 2 of them moved to seize him, their hands outstretched like blades. But before they could touch him, Sira stood. Her power flared, a halo of golden fire bursting around her. The guardians stumbled back, shielding their faces from the sudden brilliance. Then Kaylee rose, her voice unleashing a resonance that shook the chamber, shattering the crystal lectern at the front. Lyra followed, the floor rippling outward in waves that threw the guardians off their feet. And then, one by one, the others joined. The hall blazed with power. Light, sound, force, heat, all woven into a storm of defiance. Dozens of students, once silent and obedient, now stood united, their powers singing in harmony. The guardians faltered. They had been trained to command obedience, not to face rebellion. Their weapons flickered. Their authority crumbled beneath the sheer force of so many awakened wills. Daniel stood at the front, heart thundering. He did not move. He did not need to. The rebellion had begun without him lifting a hand. The headmistress appeared in the doorway, her violet eyes blazing with fury. The air bent around her, power radiating from her tall form. She raised her hand, and the storm of the girl's powers faltered under the weight of her will. "You are children," she thundered. "Children who mistake chaos for strength. You think this human has given you freedom? He has given you nothing but ruin." The students wavered, their powers flickering. Fear rippled across their faces. The headmistress's presence was crushing, her authority like iron forged through centuries. Daniel stepped forward at last. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall. "You are wrong. I gave them nothing. They already had it. All I did was remind them." The headmistress's gaze cut through him like a blade. "Then you will be the first to fall." She raised her hand, energy gathering like a storm about to break. But before it could strike, Sira cried out, her power erupting in a pillar of golden fire. Kaylee's voice rose in a thunderous resonance, joining it. Lyra sent the floor itself rising like a wave. One by one, the others followed, their powers weaving together, pushing back against the crushing weight of the headmistress's will. And for the first time, the headmistress faltered. Her eyes widened as the storm pressed against her, as dozens of voices shouted the same word in unison. "Freedom!" The hall shook with the force of it. The walls trembled. The ceiling cracked. Light burst outward, blinding, unstoppable. When it cleared, the guardians lay scattered, their cloaks torn, their weapons useless. The headmistress stood gasping, her strength broken by the tide she could not contain. The students stood united, their faces alight with triumph and terror, their powers still flickering around them. Daniel looked at them, his heart aching with pride. "You have done it," he whispered. "You are free." But Sira's eyes narrowed, her voice steady. "No, teacher. This is only the beginning." The academy was theirs now, but the dominion beyond its walls would not remain silent. The storm had only just begun. The academy lay in silence, but it was no longer the silence of obedience. It was the silence of a storm's eye, heavy and breathless, waiting for the thunder to return. The guardians had been defeated. The headmistress, stripped of her power, had fled into the deeper halls, her authority shattered by the voices of her own students. The girls stood amidst the wreckage of their rebellion. Walls cracked, crystals shattered, the air humming with the echo of unleashed power. Daniel looked at them. Their faces shone with awe and terror, their chests heaving with the weight of what they had done. They had defied centuries. They had broken chains older than their own lives. But already, Sira's voice rose above the others. "Steady, fierce. They will come for us. The Dominion will not ignore this. We must be ready." Fear rippled through the group, but it did not smother the fire in their eyes. Instead, it sharpened it. They knew the cost now, and still, they would not go back. Daniel stepped forward, his voice carrying the gravity of the moment. "You must understand. The Dominion has armies, fleets. They have ruled for centuries through fear. If you face them, you will suffer. Some of you may die." Kaylee's silver hair shimmered in the fractured light. Her voice trembled, but her words did not. "Then let it be so. Better to die free than live as shadows." Her words cut through the silence like a blade. The girls straightened, their powers flickering faintly, their resolve hardening. Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to protect them, to shield them, but he knew now. He could not. They were no longer children. They were something new, something their world had never seen before. That night, the academy became a fortress. Students gathered in hidden rooms, weaving plans, sharing secrets. Their powers were tested, sharpened, practiced not in isolation, but in unity. Sira proved a leader, her fire both weapon and beacon. Kaylee's voice became more than sound. It was strategy, able to disrupt machinery and disarm weapons with a single note. Lyra bent the very ground they walked upon, reshaping it to defend their halls. Others revealed gifts Daniel had never imagined. One girl could bend light itself, cloaking them in invisibility. Another could sense the emotions of those around her, guiding the group like a compass through fear and hope alike. They were not just students. They were an army born of fire and dream. When the Dominion arrived, they came with ships that blotted out the stars. The skies above the academy glowed with their engines, their shadow falling across the land like a judgment. Soldiers poured down in waves, armored and disciplined, their weapons gleaming with cold precision. The girls gathered at the gates. Their robes fluttered in the wind, their powers shimmering like dawn breaking across the horizon. Daniel stood among them, but behind, not ahead. This was their fight now. The commander of the Dominion forces stepped forward, his voice amplified by alien machinery. "Children of Vera, you have been misled by an outsider. Submit now, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be destroyed." The girls did not flinch. Sira stepped forward, her golden green eyes blazing. Her voice cut through the commander's amplified thunder like a blade. "We will not submit. We will not return to silence. We are free." Her words rippled through the army behind her, a shout that echoed from dozens of voices at once. "Free!" The Dominion soldiers raised their weapons. The air crackled with the charge of energy, with the promise of slaughter. Then the first shot was fired. It never reached them. Lyra's power surged, the ground rising like a shield, absorbing the blast. Kaylee's voice rang out, shattering the weapons in the front line. Sira raised her hand, fire roaring outward, scattering soldiers like leaves in a storm. The battle began. The courtyard became a storm of power and steel. Soldiers charged, but the girls fought as one, their powers weaving together in ways even they had not foreseen. Light cloaked them, sound disarmed their foes. The ground itself rebelled against the Dominion's march. For every soldier that struck, 3 more were thrown back by the force of united defiance. Daniel stood at the heart of it, his voice carrying through the chaos. "Together. Do not break apart. Stand as one." And they did. Hours passed in fire and fury. The Dominion, disciplined and armed, pressed forward again and again. But the students, driven by a fire greater than fear, refused to bend. For every guardian of the old world, there was a girl who rose brighter, fiercer, unstoppable. At last, as the first light of dawn painted the sky, the Dominion line broke. Their commander, his armor scorched and cracked, called for retreat. The ships lifted, their shadows withdrawing from the land. The sky cleared, and silence returned, this time not heavy, but triumphant. The girls stood among the ruins, battered and exhausted, but unbroken. Daniel walked among them, pride burning in his chest. He saw Kaylee's trembling hands, Syrah's weary fire, Lyra's bruised body, and all the others who had stood when standing seemed impossible. They had done it. They had defied the Dominion. They had won. But victory carried weight. The academy was no longer a school. It was the birthplace of something greater. Syrah looked at Daniel, her voice low but resolute. They will come again. Stronger. Harder. This was only the beginning. Daniel met her gaze. He had no illusions. She was right. The Dominion would never forgive this. But as he looked at the faces of the girls, glowing with pride and determination, he knew something deeper. The Dominion had already lost. Because no empire, no matter how vast, could chain hearts that had tasted freedom. And now, freedom had a voice. It was theirs. The dawn after their victory was not gentle. Smoke still rose from the broken walls of the academy. The crystal towers that once gleamed with serenity now stood scarred, cracked, and blackened. The girls moved through the ruins like survivors of a storm, tired, wounded, but unbowed. Their laughter, soft and disbelieving, mingled with tears. For the first time, they felt the weight of their own strength. But Daniel knew peace would not last. From the edge of the horizon came a sound that shook the earth itself. A hum so deep it rattled the bones, growing louder, heavier. He looked up and saw it, the fleet. Not scouts, not soldiers. The Dominion had returned, and this time they had come with their full fury. Dozens of ships blotted out the sky, their engines roaring like thunder, their weapons glowing with power enough to level cities. This was no longer a lesson. This was judgment. The girls gathered at the courtyard once more. Syrah stood at the front, her robes torn, her golden fire still flickering faintly around her hands. Kaylee's silver hair clung to her face, her throat raw from the strain of battle, but her eyes burned with resolve. Lyra's body trembled, but the ground beneath her feet pulsed with life, ready to rise again at her command. Daniel stood among them, his voice steady though his heart quaked. They are coming with everything they have. You have done what no one thought possible. But this will not be like before. If you fight them here, some of you will not survive. The girls looked at him, their faces calm, their fear swallowed by something stronger. Syrah stepped forward, her voice clear and sharp. Then we will not fight them here. We will fight for something greater. Not for walls, not for halls, for a future, for all of Vera, for freedom. Her words struck the air like a spark, and the others answered in unison. For freedom. The fleet descended. The ground shook. The sky burned with the light of their weapons. And then the final battle began. The Dominion unleashed fire upon the academy, beams of searing energy tearing into the earth. But the students raised their hands together, their powers combining into a shield of light and sound, of fire and stone. For a moment, it held. But the Dominion pressed harder. The shield cracked. The girls staggered. Their strength was great, but the Empire's weight was endless. Daniel felt helpless, a single human among gods and titans. Yet when he saw them falter, he stepped forward. His voice rose, raw and desperate. Do not break. You are more than they believe. You are more than you believe. Together, you are unstoppable. The girls screamed, their voices uniting with his. The shield flared again, brighter than before. But even that was not enough. The Dominion's fire pressed down, crushing, unrelenting. And then, something happened that none of them expected. The ground itself seemed to awaken. The air shimmered. The sky roared. The girls' powers, strained and bleeding, surged into one another, weaving together not as fragments, but as a single force. Syrah's fire, Kaylee's voice, Lyra's earth, the Lightbender's illusions, the Empatha's guidance, all merged. Dozens of powers, dozens of wills, fused into one radiant storm. The girls cried out as one. Their bodies shone like stars. Their voices shook the heavens. And the shield did not just hold. It expanded. The Dominion's fire was pushed back. Their ships trembled under the onslaught. Energy crackled across the sky, tearing through their formations, scattering them like leaves before a hurricane. Daniel shielded his eyes, tears burning as he watched. It was not his doing. It had never been his doing. This was theirs. Their power. Their freedom. Their future. When the light finally dimmed, the sky was clear. The fleet was gone, scattered, broken, fleeing into the void. The academy lay in ruins, but the land itself was alive with victory. The girls collapsed, exhausted but smiling, laughter breaking through tears. Daniel moved among them, kneeling beside Sira, who struggled to lift her head. "You did it," he whispered. Her golden-green eyes met his, fierce even in weakness. "No, teacher. We all did it. Together." Kaylee's hand found his, her voice soft and trembling. "We are free now. Truly free." Daniel's heart swelled with pride and sorrow all at once. He knew their journey was not over. The Dominion would return one day, perhaps stronger, perhaps merciless. But he also knew the truth. No empire could ever chain them again. Because freedom was not just a word now. It was alive. It burned in every one of them. The students rose slowly, leaning on one another. Their eyes turned not to the ruins behind them, but to the horizon ahead. For the first time, they would shape their own future, not as daughters of the Dominion, not as tools of an empire, but as free beings. Daniel stood with them, a single human among alien hearts, and smiled through his tears. He had come as a teacher. He had become a spark. And in the end, he had watched that spark grow into a fire that would never die.